Good day, everyone. I am the Marginal Non-hermit, and I have just a little digression, I guess, on one of my personal heroes, Ludwig von Mises. In my opinion, one of the most important writers of the 20th century. I've got a copy here of his book, Socialism, and this is an excellent book because it basically goes through piece by piece and dismantles the entire socialist system of thought, including all of its offshoots, National Socialism, etc., etc., etc. It was written originally in 1922. There was a second edition published in 1932, and then there was a new edition that was published in 1950. So I just wanted to give a couple quick readings, just because I find this book and the way that Mises writes to be extremely satisfying. So it can. So I mean, okay. So Ludwig von Mises was the man who brought the Austrian School of Economics back into the limelight. Basically, he produced a paper on the on economic calculation in the socialist commonwealth, I believe in 1920. And in that paper, he discusses how it's impossible for a socialist commonwealth to allocate resources efficiently because it has no price system. At the very best, it can borrow a price system from capitalist, or rather, free market-ish or free-ish market neighbors, and use those prices. But without that, it would be completely in the dark. And it's a very interesting paper. This book, Socialism, is kind of like the extended version of that. And he kind of assumes that you know what he's talking about a little bit, but the thing about Mises was that he always left a little bit of room for the state. And, I disagree with that, but he always had a very clear and disdainful tone of voice whenever he wrote about the state. So he's talking about Marxism here and how Marxism basically saved the utopian socialist nonsense by putting a scientific veneer on socialist thought. And here he says, "The incomparable success of Marxism is due to the prospect it offers of fulfilling those dream aspirations and dreams of vengeance which have been so deeply embedded in the human soul from time immemorial. It promises a paradise on earth, a land of heart's desire, full of happiness and enjoyment, and, sweeter still to the losers in life's game, humiliation of all who are stronger and better than the multitude. Logic and reasoning, which might show the absurdity of such dreams, of bliss and revenge, are to be thrust aside. Marxism is thus the most radical of all reactions against the reign of scientific thought over life and action, established by rationalism. It is against logic, against science, and against the activity of thought itself. Its outstanding principle is the prohibition of thought and inquiry, especially as applied to the institutions and workings of a socialist economy. It is characteristic that it should adopt the name scientific socialism," he uses quotes, "and thus gain the prestige acquired by science through the indisputable success of its rule over life and action, for use in its own battle against any scientific contribution to the construction of the socialist economy. The Bolshevists persistently tell us that religion is opium for the people. Marxism is indeed opium for those who might take to thinking and must therefore be weaned from it." He also has, let's see. "But if we include under the term Marxist all who have accepted the basic Marxian principles, that class conditions thought, that socialism is inevitable, and that research into the being and working of the socialist economy is unscientific, we shall find very few non-Marxists in Europe east of the Rhine, and even in Western Europe and the United States, many more supporters than opponents of Marxism. Professed Christians attack the materialism of Marxists, monarchists their republicanism, nationalists their internationalism, yet they themselves, each in turn, wish to be known as Christian socialists, state socialists, national socialists. They assert that their particular brand of socialism is the only true one, that which shall come, bringing with it happiness and contentment. The socialism of others, they say, has not the genuine class origin of their own. At the same time, they scrupulously respect Marx's prohibition of any inquiry into the institutions of the socialist economy of the future, and try to interpret the working of the present economic system as a development leading to socialism in accordance with the inexorable demand of the historical process. It's just like a drill press. Like, all of these people claim that they're not socialists or that other people aren't socialists, but then they accept the entire set of requirements of the socialist program. Let's see, what have we got here? We got a few more things. So the 1950 edition was, of course, written after World War II. We got some great comments on fascism and Nazism here. The philosophy of the Nazis, the German National Socialist Labor Party, is the purest and most consistent manifestation of the anti-capitalistic and socialistic spirit of our age. Most purest and most consistent. Its essential ideas are not German or Aryan in origin, scare quotes Aryan, nor are they peculiar to the present-day Germans. In the genealogical tree of the Nazi doctrine, such Latins as Sismondi and Georges Sorel, and such Anglo-Saxons as Carlyle, Ruskin, and Houston Stewart Chamberlain, were more conspicuous than any German. Even the best-known ideological attire of Nazism, the fable of the superiority of the Aryan master race, was not of German provenance. Its author was a Frenchman, Gobineau. I'm not sure I pronounced that right, but that's all right. Germans of Jewish descent, like Lassalle, Lassen, Stahl, and Walter Rathenau, contributed more to the essential tenets of Nazism than such men as Sombart, Spann, and Ferdinand Fried. Fried? The slogan into which the Nazis condensed their economic philosophy, the commonweal ranks above private profit, is likewise the idea underlying the American New Deal and the Soviet management of economic affairs. It implies that profit-seeking business harms the vital interests of the immense majority, and that it is the sacred duty of popular government to prevent the emergence of profits by public control of production and distribution. Let's see, what else has he got here? It is easy for economists to explode the fallacies involved in the Nazi doctrines, but those who disparage economics as orthodox and reactionary and fanatically support the spurious creeds of socialism and economic nationalism were at a loss to refute them. For Nazism was nothing but the logical application of their own tenets to the particular conditions of comparatively overpopulated Germany. When the Soviet policies of mass extermination of all dissenters and of ruthless violence removed the inhibitions against wholesale murder, which still troubled some of the Germans, nothing could any longer stop the advance of Nazism. The Nazis were quick to adopt the Soviet methods. They imported from Russia the one-party system and the preeminence of this party in political life, the paramount position assigned to the secret police, the concentration camps, the administrative execution or imprisonment of all opponents, the extermination of the families of suspects and of exiles, the methods of propaganda, the organization of affiliated parties abroad, and their employment for fighting their domestic governments and for espionage and sabotage, the use of diplomatic and consular service for fomenting revolution, and many other things besides. There were nowhere more docile disciples of Lenin, Trotsky, and Stalin than the Nazis were. Here's what's great. Hitler was not the founder of Nazism. He was its product. He was, like most of his collaborators, a sadistic gangster. He was uneducated and ignorant. He had failed even in the lower grades of high school. He never had any honest job. It is a fable that he ever had been a paper hanger. His military career in the First World War was rather mediocre. The first-class Iron Cross was given to him after the end of the war as a reward for his activities as a political agent. He was a maniac, obsessed by megalomania. But learned professors nourished his self-conceit. Werner Sombart, who once had boasted that his life was devoted to the task of fighting for the ideas of Marx, Sombart, whom the American Economic Association had elected to honorary membership, and many non-German universities to honorary degrees, candidly declared that Führertum means a permanent revelation, and that the Führer receives his orders directly from God, the supreme Führer of the universe. The Nazi plan was more comprehensive and therefore more pernicious than that of the Marxians. It aimed at abolishing laissez-faire, not only in the production of material goods, but no less in the production of men. The Führer was not only the general manager of all industries, he was also the general manager of the breeding farm, intent upon rearing superior men and eliminating inferior stock. A grandiose scheme of eugenics was to be put into effect according to scientific, quote-unquote, principles. It must be emphasized again, there is no such thing as a scientific ought. Which men are superior and which are inferior can only be decided by personal value judgments, not liable to verification or falsification. The eugenicists delude themselves in assuming that they themselves will be called to decide what qualities are to be conserved in the human stock. They are too dull to take into account the possibility that other people might make the choice according to their own value judgments. In the eyes of the Nazis, the brutal killer, the fair-haired beast, is the most perfect specimen of mankind. The mass slaughters perpetrated in the Nazi horror camps are too horrible to be adequately described by words, but they were the logical and consistent application of doctrines and policies parading as applied science and approved by some men who in a sector of the natural sciences may have displayed acumen and technical skill in laboratory research. He has more stuff on the Soviets here, Mussolini, etc. I mean, pretty much anything you read by Mises is gold. I like his style of writing a little more than Rothbard, even though Rothbard was more, I guess, philosophically accurate in the end. Rothbard went full ANCAP, but Ludwig von Mises always left a space for the state. However, I still think that Mises' writing style and the way that he systematically dismantles things in his writing, as well as his tone, which is at once elevated and often derisive, very, very good style of writing, and it shows through in pretty much all of his writing. I highly recommend reading books, essays, papers, whatever, by Ludwig von Mises, because they are incredibly persuasive, incredibly thorough, incredibly well written, and they'll get you, if you're not already on the ANCAP bandwagon, they'll get you 90% of the way there. And then Rothbard does the finishing blow. That's all I have for this one. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Mises, and thanks for watching. Read Mises because it's the best antidote to unclear and bad thinking. Thank you for your time.